Hello, everyone. Keith Evelyn here, Entrepreneurship Simplified podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I've got my very good friend, Neal Maier with Tread Partners on. Neal, hello, and thank you for joining.
Hey, Keith, great to be here.
Hey, man. All right. So you have forgotten more about digital marketing than I probably will ever know. So I'm going to position you as the expert because you know so much about just the mistakes that a lot of people make when trying to do digital marketing. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and just have you share with our listeners your experience, one as an entrepreneur because you've done it yourself, but two, a lot of just the do's and don'ts that you see people mess up. So to start off with, just tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure, thank you. I'm certainly not deserving of that kind of praise, but I'm happy to share my mistakes. That they are plenty.
There you go.
I started out in business, working for a tire dealer, and through a couple of strokes of luck, I went on to become an owner. I ran 2 locations here in North Carolina. About 15 years ago, decided I was ready for a career shift. So I moved into marketing, went on to run a marketing agency, and then struck back out on my own again with David Christopher to form what's now Tread Partners.
Sure.
So we started as a generalist agency, started actually as a website development shop. To date, we've built a few over 600 websites.
Wow.
We've worked with all sorts of industries. About 3 years ago, really dialed it in to say we're really only going to work with multi-location tire dealers and auto repair shops because that's our background.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So Dave has experience in collision, right?
That's right. That's right. Dave grew up in the collision industry, and in fact, only just a couple years ago, sold his shop.
Gotcha. So yeah, so again, for those of you listening, his background is definitely in tires, but as an entrepreneur himself and running a generalist agency, he has seen some crazy things. We have swapped some stories about some digital marketing clients over the years, and he's had some really good ones. Good meaning bad. But yeah, so I guess what is the biggest thing, think back to before you're doing multi-location. So he does multi-location tire dealers and auto repair shops. So these are big companies, right? So think back to before that, especially, single location tire dealers or, back when you were doing generalist type stuff. What are some of the biggest mistakes you would see people who were thinking about jumping into owning their own business or, had already made the leap and are trying to figure out, okay, how do I get a customer?
The toughest clients we ever had were startups. They were the brand new businesses. In a lot of cases, were spawned off of an existing business. Those actually might have been the most dangerous ones.
Sure.
Where it was well funded, nobody needed to quit their day job, not a lot of risk, and just spun up a side project. But I think there were a couple of pitfalls that we would routinely encounter. The first one was the go-to-market strategy.
Sure.
Although you're hiring a marketing agency, marketers know how to take a fixed product, a set service, and then find the audience, represent it, make it appealing.
Sure.
But when the product either doesn't yet exist or the service is kind of a variable, it gets really, really difficult for any marketer to try to crawl inside the entrepreneur's brain and pull that out.
Sure.
Those were really that was the hardest part right out of the gate. I'd say that the second was thinking about I'd say budgeting, understanding what an entrepreneur, what a startup is willing to spend in order to market that product. And I get that out of the gates, that might not be a profitable venture, but at some point it should reach a point of profitability. And those are things that really, really are important to set as goals with the marketing agency to say, hey, look, I know for the first 90, 120 days, we're going to struggle, right? We're going to spend all kinds of money and test channels and messaging and ads and design. But sooner or later, I need this to be 6% of my revenue, 8%, 15%, whatever that number is, to kind of have that really just basic business plan, but
Mm,
to be able to line item out what you're
yeah.
willing to spend on marketing.
Yeah. So working with small businesses myself, budget, like you just said, has always been a concern. And a lot of times it's the perceived value, right? Like they think it doesn't have a whole lot of value, like a website doesn't have a whole lot of value. So I'm not willing to spend a whole lot on it. While they'll, especially for like some sort of retail. So in your case, it would be a tire shop, but it could be, we're a bakery. It's going to cost me $80,000 to build this bakery out. It's going to cost me $15,000 for my sign. I'm willing to spend $500 on my website. And it's that type of thing that always makes me kind of scratch my head. And so how would you in the past, again, when you were dealing with this, how would you deal with stuff like that?
You know, I talk in examples, and I would usually compare it to building a house. If you go to a contractor and say, I'd like you to build me a house, how much does it cost? Well, there's 1,000
Sure.
questions that come after that. But even if you agree that we're going to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch, even if that's the stated design and layout, it could still be $150,000 or $2 million. Depends on how nice it is, right?
Right.
Depends on whether you want gold plated fixtures or not. And,
Right.
and that extreme variability in price comes back to the website too. So you have to think about that house. If I spend $150,000, am I going to love it? And hey, I may be the type of person that does, but if I spend $300,000 on it, I might really love it. It might suit my purposes better. So price does factor into this, but price is, is a side effect.
Sure.
It's what comes from saying, instead, I'm going to build a bakery. I want my website to be this really awesome portal where people can look at the pictures. I'm going to spend money on photography. I want you to spend a lot of effort on design to bring that out. And I want people's mouths to water when they
Yeah.
hit my homepage.
Yeah.
Or to say, hey, I've got this super high visibility corner lot. I just spent $15,000 on a sign. I just need, just a placeholder. Need something to
Sure.
show our hours and that we've got
Sure.
cakes and donuts.
Yep.
So just so many different avenues, but that's a conversation that really needs to be had early on.
Sure. So I think it's great, great analogy, by the way, building the house. Because yeah, most people they want the $1 million house, but they have the $150,000 budget. I mean, but you hit the nail on the head, which I tell people all the time, especially I mean, we've done at Yellowfin Digital, we've done a lot of e-commerce, specifically women's fashion, and pictures make all the difference in the world. I mean, people like pretty people, pretty places, pretty sunsets, food we eat with our eyes. It makes sense to take a little bit of time, spend a little bit of money, a little bit of effort on good pictures for your website. Even if, like you said, you can build a website that's huge, beautiful, like you can buy your cake and donuts, or it could just be a one pager. But still, even if it's just a one pager, my goodness, get good pictures. Like, just take the time to get some good pictures.
This came up yesterday. We have a client who is aggressively buying locations,
Mm,
and every time they add a new location, part of their onboarding process is to send a photographer out there,
genius.
and they get pictures of the building. That they, if they're going to change the signage or make an update, they do that first, but
Sure,
they do it
sure.
quickly. They get pictures of the building, of the people, of the customers, the cars, the location, and we've just done a proof for a new homepage, and it looks unbelievable. And
Yeah,
the pictures and the locations aren't Taj Mahals,
yeah,
right? They are
yeah.
not these
The tire
highly
shop.
polished. They're tire shops, right?
Yeah,
And on top of it, they're local, single location, right? Tire
sure.
shops. It's Keith's Tires.
Right.
they look so authentic.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to convey how important it is that when a visitor hits the website, sees that picture, they get a feel for what it's going to be like. It's not
Yeah.
bait and switch, right? We didn't use
Exactly.
stock photography,
Yep.
but also I don't care if you're a professional marketer or a professional baker, you can spot stock photography from
Yep.
a mile away.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, it's genius. And again, this is just a tire shop, but having a good picture and I know what to expect when I get there. Now, again, you're putting it in the best light possible, right?
Sure,
You're not
sure.
changing it. Like we're not going to Photoshop this to make everybody look like supermodels inside, but having a good idea of what to expect when I get there just makes everything, the whole experience is just way better. Like
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
amazing.
in our world, a smiling technician might be a little stretch, right?
Right.
Technicians don't smile all day long, but it's pleasant, right? And
Yeah.
if you think about if I were going to start a new company tomorrow, launch a product, whatever the case is, photography would be a part of my budget.
Yeah.
And in fact, it'd be early on, and then 6 months from now, I do it again
Yeah.
because things change, right? And you learn things, and it evolves. Product or service, either one. You add a different service.
Sure.
Something's going to change in that process. But it's just so important because we really have just a couple ways to communicate our message. We can do it visually. We can do it, by ear. We can do it in words. But that visual impact is what hits before anything else does.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. That's great. Again, I didn't know where this podcast was going to go, but that is one of the biggest mess ups, is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, is just using stock photography for everything, especially like for a baker, for example. Like you can't do stock photography of the food that you do, but you see people do it. I mean, it's unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? Like you should take
And in
pride
a
in what you do.
restaurant, that's right.
Yeah.
In a restaurant, how difficult is it, right? Just tonight, pull the entrees as they come out, wipe the plates, take a reasonably new iPhone,
Yep.
take some pictures, right?
Yep.
This doesn't have to be a $10,000 photo shoot. It'd be awesome if it
Correct.
was, but
But it doesn't have
look,
to be.
as marketers, we can do a lot with a little.
Yep. I agree. That's great advice. Great advice. So next question I have for you is, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the digital marketing industry? So I'm a new business owner, or potentially about to be a new business owner. What are some misconceptions that you have dealt with in the past?
Number one, that it's going to solve your problems. So early on, it's really, really important that there's, we'll call it a product market fit,
Mhm.
right? The service you offer, people have to want it,
Sure.
even though you think that it's a phenomenal idea. Before you even head down the path of digital, you ought to get some sales success, right?
Hmm.
Talk to friends and family, do it the hard way, knock on a couple doors,
Yep.
learn in that process. And if you understand why somebody wants to buy your product, not the spot in the market that you solve, but why somebody actually looks at it and says that's appealing. If you can come prepared with that, that makes everything else after that far simpler.
Yeah.
The second misconception is that digital marketing is going to carry the weight of the business. That as an entrepreneur, all I have to do now is sit back and just rake in the orders,
Yep.
and that's simply not the case either. Whether it's
I call
product
that
or
the
service,
field of dreams, right? If you
that's
build
right.
it, they will come. That's not what this is. Like this is
Yeah,
not the
no,
field
it's
of
not.
dreams. Yeah.
It's not, and it's it's dangerous. You flip through Instagram and you see or Facebook. You see all these ads, right? There's this. As a man, I see all these awesome pocket knives and boots
Hmm.
and pants and all these things that are right. And we look at those and think, man, I mean, it's so easy, right? They just somebody made an awesome product, slapped up some ads, and this thing's rocking and rolling. When in reality, it's far from that, right? Those ads eat up a lot of margin.
Huge.
Those pants probably are $59 pants, but they have to be sold at 98 because of the ads.
Yep.
So just understanding that marketing's not a cure, right? It's a way to add fuel to a fire, but
Right.
it's not the whole campfire.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I have dealt with very small businesses or ones who are about to get started is like, you're my hope. Like, this is like, do you guarantee it? Can you guarantee results? Like, guarantee that this is going to happen? And my thing is always, absolutely not. If I could guarantee it, I'd charge a heck of a lot more than what I'm charging. I mean, because if I could guarantee, you know, to make you $10 on every dollar you spend in advertising, I'd be worth my weight in gold to everyone in the entire world, right? Like, so why wouldn't everybody use me and pay me anything I asked? And so that's something that I've always dealt with. And again, when I have helped friends and people I know start businesses, like, hey, there are no guarantees. And I guess that would move me into my next question, which is red flags. Like, what red flags should people look for when talking to potential digital marketing partners?
You know, marketing is complicated, and there is no one right way to do it. It what works, and especially from my experience, we market for very similar businesses all over the country.
Yep.
What works in one market will not work in the next
Sure.
market.
Sure.
People buy for different reasons. They might have the same demographics, but psychologically they make different buying decisions. So marketing is so complicated that really I think as you're looking for a marketing partner, you need to look for someone who's not walking in saying, I can solve this. I know exactly what you need. You don't need to tell me anything, or that with a guarantee. There's no guarantees in this. The only guarantee we can make as marketers is that we will work with you to the end of the earth to keep trying things until we find that right fit. I can bring all my experience to the table. So I think that's the path is if somebody guarantees, hey, as an agency owner, I see again these these Facebook ads of we'll get you 10 new leads a week. Well, guess what? I know you can't do that because my market's not big enough for you to deliver
Right.
10
Yeah,
leads a week.
exactly. Right.
So I think that you just have to, it's buyer beware, right?
Yeah.
It is when we formed our company, rebranded our company, and worked on trying to come up with a name. It was really really important to me that I had the name, the word partner in our name, and I think about our client relationships like the relationship I have with my accountant and my attorney. Right, they're trusted advisors. I can go to them and talk to them about anything. Um, they give me sound advice, but they're not providing that advice with a paycheck in the back of their mind, right? It's I'm hiring them for that advice.
Yep.
And I think that that's really what you've got to look for in this is you have to have a partner and you have to have somebody who's willing to spend the time to understand your business,
Yeah.
right? What you do is different. That's the whole reason you started the
Yep.
company.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm just and I do handyman work just like everybody else, why would you use me? Right?
So you know what? That's actually a perfect example. You and I've talked about the handyman business for years, and 50 times you've said, "Man, Neal, just don't understand why you wouldn't start a handyman business in
Sure.
Raleigh."
Sure.
And I look at the successes you've had in that business, and then I look at my market. I don't think I can replicate it because my market is so different and the labor supply here is really, really tight. So, it's what works in one market just doesn't ensure success elsewhere.
Yeah, and if your marketer comes in, like you said, and just says, "Hey, don't worry about this. I got this," you should be very worried. Like, because
I
what
mean,
they should be doing is asking a lot of questions.
yeah. Now, I say that I mean I recognize that
Sure.
I'm speaking against my own rule, but I say that at the end of the conversation, at the end of the fact finding, at the end of those first early conversations where I'm trying to wrap my mind around what it is you're doing, what makes you special, but also what your problem is,
Yeah.
right? And the problem isn't I'm not selling enough. Right? That's not it. It's not a revenue problem. You've got to dig 5 layers deeper to
Sure.
get to the root cause. At that point, hey, chances are I have run across that before.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to give some assurances at that point to say, hey, I've solved that problem, right? Not in
Correct.
your market, not in this world, but I've solved it elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, just that track record and experience. But everybody's got a cousin who can come help them with Facebook ads,
Right.
right? Everybody's
Right.
got a cousin who's
You can build a website.
built a Wix website, right?
Yep.
And not to knock Wix, I think is perfect for a lot of businesses.
Sure.
But just because you've got that relationship does not mean that that's the right person.
Right.
Price is not an indicator of it either, though. Cheapest might be
Correct.
best, but
Right.
you've got to spend the time to do the due diligence to find the right partner.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that. So Wix, so I am going to say that Wix is not a great solution if you're planning on scaling up. So I'm going to put that out there. You don't have to, I will. Not a great solution. Use WordPress. It powers like 58% of the internet at this point. So anyway, unless it's e-commerce, then we can talk about solutions. But you talked about the cousin that can build a website. So what are your thoughts? I assume I know, but what are your thoughts on the guy who says, hey, look, I can take care of all of this for you. It's me by myself. I can build your website. I can do your SEO. I can do your PPC. I can, do your organic social media. What are your thoughts on people like that?
I'm a pretty handy guy. I could build a house. It would probably take me 5 years.
Yeah.
And no walls would be straight, right? The floors would be out
And
of
no
level
square,
because I
yeah, no
get
square walls.
frustrated.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's no, it's just impossible to be really good at everything. So even as an agency, we do 3 things, right? Of all the things out there that can be done. Now, of course, there's ancillary parts to go with it, but we have 3 core services. And I think that it's so important to find a partner who knows what they're good at and will
Sure.
tell you what they're bad at.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to have that sort of understanding. Think about all the effort that you've just put into starting this business or even thinking about starting this business.
Sure.
Right. You've hopefully built a business plan. You've spent countless hours thinking through all the things that could go wrong, all the things that you have to do to get here. You're not great at marketing. That's why you're looking for someone to help you with this.
Yep.
Why choose somebody who says, I can do it all? Doesn't make sense.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, there are people who probably can do all of it, kind of like you building a house, right? I can do it. Doesn't mean it's going to be good though. Like it's not going to be
No, it'd be
great.
terrible.
I mean, the guy who is really good at design, like the creativity of design, is not going to be like Matt, who's fantastic at looking at the data analytics and being able to go, okay, this is where we should go next with our PPC campaign,
Yeah.
because that's 2 completely different mindsets. And when people tell me, oh yeah, the guy, not the company, the guy that built my website is also doing my SEO, and but we're not really getting great results, and I'm like, well, that's why you're talking to me, is because you're not getting good results. It's because you have a guy who is a creative mindset that made a very good looking website trying to do search engine optimization. He doesn't have a clue. Like, I mean, he understands like the blocking and tackling of it, right? But the ability to actually do it correctly, it doesn't work, which is why I charge more than he charges. And that's why at some point you get what you pay for. I mean, it's like, and there's, variations, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
it stands to be true in basically any industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's no different than if you have a medical malady, seek out a specialist,
Yeah.
right? You want the best. This is ultra important. If
Yep.
it's not, then don't do this. Right. So it's so important, so critical that you find that right fit. If I were that baker just starting out, I think as soon as I've signed a lease, I'd be looking for a marketing agency.
Yeah.
Like those two things would kind of coincide, and I'd look for two different groups. I'd look for local marketers
Yep.
because I do think that if you have a single location, local business, someone who understands that local market is really important.
Sure.
And then I would also look nationally to see who are the bakery marketing
Yep.
specialists, and
Absolutely.
I'd weigh that out. Chances are that the right mix is somebody who understands your local market but has marketed for a bakery before,
Sure.
right? You want a track record of success. And hey, it may be that you find somebody locally who's just done a great job with restaurants, and that might be close enough
Close enough.
for you.
Right.
But I would look for that track record, and if you can shortcut having to explain your business to a marketing agency, I
Yeah.
think you've just knocked a year off of the success path.
Yeah, I agree. That's honestly the best advice you've given so far. I mean, the reality is again, if it is a local business, and especially like we're a perfect example, Corpus Christi. It's a very unique market. And if you don't understand the market and you don't understand the part of town that somebody's opening up in, it's completely different from, it could be night and day, right? But at the same time, if I'm opening a bakery and these people over here have done 1,200 bakeries, they've worked with 1,200 bakeries. Yeah, I mean, you could really shortcut that. They could learn the little bit that's different about Corpus Christi and absolutely rock it because they know bakeries. So that's
You
great,
know,
great
I'll
advice.
I'll tell you this great story. Early on, when we were a generalist agency, one of our first marketing clients was a document shredding company, right? The big trucks that go around and shred in parking lots and that sort of thing. And it was two guys, and they were great to work with. They were mentors for being Dave along the way too. And we worked hand in hand with them to build this thing to the point that they covered most of the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
And then they got acquired.
Yeah.
And gosh, it was a shot to the gut when they got
Yeah.
acquired, right? It
You're like,
really hurt. But
yeah,
at the same point, we had this talk about how we really were a big part of why they got acquired, right?
sure,
We helped them grow and we helped do all this thing. So they said, "Don't worry. Look, we're gonna take a vacation. We're gonna come back. We're gonna start another business, and we'd be crazy not to involve you guys. So just wait." So they come back a couple months later and said, "We're gonna start a dumpster company." And hey, we'd worked with a dumpster company before, knew a little bit about it, and helped them create the brand. I see their dumpsters all over town still today. And as they were growing, it took off pretty quickly, and they hired a CEO. These two guys that they were done running
sure,
companies, right? They
sure.
they they were now going to own
Yeah,
companies. So they hire a CEO with a background in waste removal. And we sit down, talk to him. We talk about all our success. Everybody's happy and friends. And he said, you know, I really think I need a marketing agency who does nothing but this. And like, fine. I mean, certainly
sure.
if it makes sense, but we'll help you however. And he came back not long after and said, "Hey, here's what they're proposing they do." And I remember reading that proposal and looking at all the things they brought to the table. And I told Dave I'd hire them,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Because they know things that we'll never know, right?
And
They're at the
don't want to learn.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
They're at the waste removal trade shows. They
Yeah.
know the difference between these roll off dumpsters, and it was such a depth of knowledge that really was the turning point for us to say we've got to specialize in this.
Sure.
We have to, because that's the right decision, is to hire the dumpster experts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you're first starting out, you might not be able to afford the dumpster experts, right? But you get there as quickly as you can,
That's right.
because again, it makes all the difference in the world, right?
Yeah, they weren't the first agency. We
Yeah,
were,
yeah,
right? But but
exactly.
but they but they were the second, and they're still the agency.
Sure.
So it's just, there's an evolution to this, and who helps you with that first website might not be the right fit all the way through, right? It
Correct.
is
Yeah.
Procter and Gamble doesn't work with the same agency that's going to build you that first
Definitely.
website,
Definitely.
right? So
Yeah.
your marketing channels, your budget, your partners really will have to scale with you. It's
Sure.
important you just understand that, hey, at some point I might outgrow this relationship. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it absolutely is. And I mean, we've had it happen to us where it's like, hey, yeah, that we're not a
Sure.
good fit anymore. And I'm okay with that because like, hey, we helped you get to where you are. Like
That's right.
I take pride in that, right? So yeah, there's no reason to feel bad about it when it happens as the business owner that you grew that much that you have to kind of move up to the big leagues. That's I mean, that's the goal, right?
That's
That's the ultimate
exactly
goal.
right. Yeah,
So yeah, so okay, you got enough time for a few more questions?
absolutely.
All right. So DIY versus professional help. When it comes to us, when it comes to digital marketers, there's certain things I think you can do yourself. It's yeah, that's I say that loosely, but I mean, there's a lot that it's. I mean, it's just really hard because you have to know what you're doing, right? So, what are your thoughts on DIY versus professional?
Early stage. Um, I believe that the entrepreneur should manage all of their social content, Facebook post, Instagram, those pictures,
Use
videos.
Canva though. Use Canva.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Make
Absolutely.
it good.
Yeah.
Yes. But I do think that there's a lot of value. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the one to post it, but
Sure.
it does mean that you've got to be the one to spur the ideas, to bring the content ideas and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So on that, I think DIY 100%. Um, there comes a point where, as an entrepreneur, you don't have time to do everything, and you then need to scale, right? But initially, I would run that myself. Um, you know, having built hundreds and hundreds of websites, I can't build a website, and I wouldn't build my own.
Right.
So that's something complicated enough that it probably makes sense to get somebody else to do it.
And
But you got to
important
weigh.
enough.
That's right, important enough.
Yeah.
But you have to weigh out how much of an impact it's going to have to the business.
Right.
Back to the bakery, right?
Yep.
Am I hoping to make cakes and sell them, ship them nationwide?
Yep.
Gonna need an agency. Gonna need somebody really to help with that. Do I just need a single page that just shows that we're open and we're here, and that's good enough for today? Sure, go build something yourself, and then replace it as you need to scale.
Yeah, and that's where the Wix website builders, that's where
Yeah,
those come in, right? Is I mean, but know that this is not a long-term solution, right?
that's
It's
right.
this
That's
is a
right. It's
stepping
enough.
stone.
Look, if I've got a $500 budget, go build a Wix website, right? Go do
100%.
something on the cheap that'll get you to the next stage,
Yeah,
get revenue moving, get some initial, some profits moving. You'll know so much more then than you did when you built that first one, that
correct.
that you'll be happy that you took that
And your
path.
business will likely change too, right?
Yeah,
Like
of
your
course.
business is going to evolve from what's in your head to what actually comes out into the world. It just changes. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to change your website anyway.
Well, I didn't set out to do what we're doing today.
Yeah,
I set out to do something. I wanted to do anything but work in the automotive industry.
sure. Yeah, you're trying to
Turns
get
out
away from
after
it.
a while I was wrong, right? So
You're trying to
it,
run away from it.
that's it. That's it. So you have to be willing to sometimes back up, meet your own words.
Yeah.
I've eaten a lot of my words,
Oh yeah.
so it's
Don't
just
say
part
always
part
and
of
don't say
business.
never. Like,
That's exactly
yeah,
right.
good gosh. Yeah, that's good advice in all aspects of your life, especially, relationships. Don't say always or never. Because yeah, you'll end up eating some words there for sure.
I do want to put one more point out, and that is that um, don't be scared to quit
Yeah.
or to change course. And I think a lot of times early stage entrepreneurs are so heavily invested
Hmm.
in what they're doing, and that, gosh, we see it on Shark Tank, even where
Yeah.
people put their life savings and
Oh
just
yeah.
poured everything into it. And I understand believing in what you do, right? That's the whole reason you did it, is you're willing to take the risk. Um, but there's a point where you really do have to take an objective view and decide, is what I'm doing the right thing? Is
Yeah.
this ever going to succeed? Marketing's the same way.
Yeah.
As marketers, we'll go try something, and we'll run a campaign for a bit, but when we start it, we also intentionally have an end date as well. Say we're going to run this campaign for 60 days. We're going to test it in this market, and up front, we know what we're looking for. Right? Is if it hits this threshold, then we're good moving forward. If it doesn't, it's got to be very, very transactional at that point. Can't get emotionally invested in it. Have to be able to say, we're going to stop this if it doesn't work. And in fact, we might stop it early.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that so I would refer that as fail fast, right?
Yeah.
The biggest financial mistake I ever made was software company that I was part of developing for the mortgage industry in '07 is when we started, and then '08, '09 happened with the real estate market, and nobody wants to spend any money on fancy software. While it was great, and again, this was '07, '08 into '09. The software was eventually created by the people who own QuickBooks. They created it in 2014. We were way ahead of our time. It was a great idea. It was fantastic, but nobody expected the entire economy to melt down because of the industry that we happen to be trying to service. And I held on to that and kept pumping my own cash into everything, taking money, all the money from the previous two companies I'd sold went into supporting myself to get through this time. And then it was like, oh crap, this sucks. I got to go get a job. I had to go get an actual job as a 29-year-old man for the first time since I was, in my teens. But if I would have failed faster, I would have walked away from that, been able to pivot to something else without having to go get that job. Now, again, it all worked out. It was God's plan. Thank goodness, because I met my wife, have two kids now, met you because of it. If that didn't happen, I'd never meet you. But my gosh, I learned the lesson to fail fast. And, and I've had other businesses fail and they fail quick and we move on, right? Or we pivot if that's what we're able to do.
And our agency was born out of a failure. Originally, and this predates me. Originally, Dave and some partners started an early stage texting trivia game, and this was back in the days when you
I didn't
probably
know
still
that's why
had to
they
pay
called
for
it that.
text. Yeah,
Oh
the original
gosh.
company name was Textivia.
Yeah.
And it eventually it just never moved, right? They couldn't find a way to monetize it. People didn't sell ads like they do now. And then not long after, give it 2-3 more years after they quit, and then texting with friends or words with friends shows up. And so same thing. They had the idea right early on. It's just that monetization was a real big hurdle. So they started building websites to make money to
To
be able to try to support the
Sure.
software.
Sure.
And about a year and a half in, it's like, hey, maybe we're making far more money over here. Maybe we just do this.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of times out of the ashes of that initial idea, it is what will propel the company to the next stages. Our company has been through 3 different brands.
Mhm.
We've changed what we're doing along. It's always been digital marketing after it was a software. But you have to try stuff, right? And that's where the risk taking comes in. You have to try it. You have to test it and see. A lot of times though, you do it once. It's like, oh, you touch that hot oven, right? The hot stove. Nope, I won't do that again. So
Yeah.
just try not to repeat yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, last question. I will let you get back to doing what you do. Industry trends. Where's it going? What's changing? How is digital marketing? If you can even begin to theorize, how's it going to look different?
Well, I have a couple of insights that I see from from our industry, and I think our industry is pretty representative. Number one, for Google Ads, the cost per click continues to rise.
Mm.
Um, more it's competition, right? It's competition, it's inflation, it's all the
All the
things
things.
contributing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the cost for a lead continues to rise. So that then has to drive up prices. The upside is that the diversification of digital marketing channels continues to grow too.
Sure.
So when I first started in this, it was you could run digital ads. SEO was really important, and then after that, we just jumped to direct mail, right? Because those are a couple things, and then social ads showed up, right? So then you can run Facebook, Instagram, and use social ads as drivers. Now programmatic ads have been around for a long time. Geofencing's been around for a long time, but that technology continues to get better and better
Yeah.
and
It's
better.
nuts. It's scary.
Podcast advertising, right?
Mhm.
Those in Spotify, all these audio platforms continue to grow too. And I think that really the biggest change that we'll see, or the biggest evolution we'll see in 25 and 26, it really will be around podcast ads. I think that's early stage entrepreneur. Forget I said this, right? Because
Yes.
that's
Right.
certainly probably not the place to begin.
Yeah.
But as people, turn to podcast increasingly to get their news, get their entertainment, and you can get any point of view you ever want. You don't have to just
Yep.
take
You have to
what's
settle. Yeah.
that's right. You don't have to settle. You don't have to just listen to what comes across the major networks. As those continue to expand, I think it creates an unbelievable opportunity, if it's a right fit for the business, to be able to get your message to a perfect demographic. You just have to find the right match.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, literally, I've lived in Corpus Christi now for 9 years. I have not listened to a radio station since I moved here. But now I pretty much solely listen to podcasts. I mean, I listen to music when the kids are in the car. But it's all podcasts. So yeah, I mean, the value, that's how Joe Rogan makes like ungodly amount of money that he makes. And I mean, he doesn't even really do ads in the middle, right? It's just like, hey, this is it. So I mean, yeah, it's definitely moving that direction. So yeah, but yes, if you're at very early stage, don't do podcasts. Not yet. Not ready yet. But yeah.
Might not be ready for that bakery,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
it's as you start thinking through what the match is.
Mhm.
Maybe as that bakery is expanding and looking to hire bakers, maybe a cooking podcast is
Yep.
is the perfect spot to put a help wanted ad.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's some things you just have to think it through.
It's any industry that you want,
That's right.
right? Yeah.
Find somebody who can help you do it, and start having those conversations. But I think that's a huge market to come.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Well, sir, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your expertise. Thank you for joining me. It was fun for me, obviously. I always like talking to you, but thanks for joining us. If people are interested in your services, how can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or our company is Tread Partners. We have a podcast as well. That's the Gain Traction podcast. And Keith, I just want to thank you. I'm honored that you feel like I have expertise to share.
Awesome. All right, sir. Thank you. We'll talk again soon. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Your next step, take what you've learned today and put it into action. Now, if this episode gave you something to think about, do me a favor and leave a review, or share it with someone you think needs to hear it. And if you have any thoughts, let's continue this discussion. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Let's simplify entrepreneurship together. We'll see you on the next one.